Hi, I'm Velia, and I'm an addict. I've been clean and sober for 2.5 years now. Uh, I'm really nervous right now. I haven't spoke in a meeting since like my first year, my 1 year. So just bear with me. Um, so my background, I'm the oldest of three. I have two younger brothers. My dad is from San Pedro and my mom's from Long Beach. Somehow they met like on the bridge or some shit. And then they had me. So my background's very dysfunctional. Like my dad's like really he's from San Pedro, he's from the ranch, so he's like really hardcore cholo. And my mom, she used to gangbang too, but she kind of stopped when she had us. So growing up, my dad was in and out of prison my whole life. So I had to step up and I had to be, dad figure. So whenever he left, I already knew, like as young as I can remember, I already knew as soon as dad was gone, like I was there to help change my brother's diapers, to help with the bottles, like being 3 years old, like I already knew, like I was really advanced and a very obedient child. I remember potty training my little brother at 3 years old, and I remember like I probably shouldn't say this part, but I remember potty training him, and he had left poop on the toilet, and I remember going and running out to go get toilet paper, and I came back and it was like gone, and it was like nowhere in sight. So I looked at him, I was like, "What happened to it?" And he was just like chewing. That was my fault. So and then right? I messed up on that one. So I remember being like 4 years old and our first raid. My dad was in prison and they were raiding our house for my uncle, which is my mom's brother, and they're from SOS, and then my dad's from the ranch. So they raided our pad looking for my uncle, and they destroyed everything, the drawers, spoons. Like I don't know why they went into. I don't know. But I remember thinking that day, like, yes, you don't have to go to school, like yes, but my mom took us to school anyways, so she had to get rid of us so she can clean the house. So that was like me. I think it was like 5. Um, Also, growing up, I used to be embarrassed of this, but I feel like this is like a big part of my story. Um, I was molested at the age of like 4 by a babysitter. It was female. So I feel like I used to I don't know uh, it was just like it was crazy growing up. Going to my babysitter's house, I remember just instantly knowing like, okay, as soon as we go there, I gotta protect my brothers. But she would only mess with me. She would like take me into the bathroom for hours. I remember being in the bathroom for like 2.5 hours, and she would just like she'd like make me go down on her. I'm only 4 years old at that time, and it was just like I don't know. Still to this day, like I walk by the trash can and I still remember that smell. Like I instantly go to that moment, being in that tub, with her and her telling me to go down on her. I remember her taking me to the laundry room and putting the pillow over my privates while my brothers were on the side, and they're like oblivious to it. They're little kids. And I just remember telling her like, "Oh, it tickles." And yeah, still to this day I don't like being tickled. So yeah. Anyways, so
You all right? All right. Got this.
so fast forward, we ended up moving to Washington State, and we moved to Washington State because my mom's mom, my grandma, was dying of cancer. So when we moved up to Seattle, my mom just thought that it was a better environment to raise us, because she didn't want to do the whole gang banging. She didn't want my dad to keep on going in and out of prison. She wanted him to actually be involved in our lives and leave the whole gang banging here. So a year after my grandma had passed away, my dad had moved to Washington, and everything was going good. My dad really did try, like with how he was raised, like I really, now I can just give him props for staying, because not a lot of people who were like grew up like my dad would stay. They'd be running the streets, gang banging or whatever. They feel like a punk if they left, but my dad did the best to his ability. So being in Washington, my dad mingling, working, he finds like people who were gang banging out there. So in his mind and his mentality, he was like, oh, these people want to gang bang. I'm gonna show them how to gang bang the right way, coming from LA, he just thought that he could teach him something. So it was always rancho this, rancho that. So I grew up in that mentality, there's like little pictures. I'm like 4 or 5, like probably 5, 6, throwing up the hood. And it's just crazy because I have multiple pictures of me and my baby brother just throwing up the hood. And that's, that's what we knew. Being over there too, I also was molested too, and that happened probably from 7 all the way up until like I was 10. But it's kind of crazy because I felt like, even though I was being molested, like I felt like, as weird as it may sound, like I felt like a little part of me like low-key enjoyed it, like, or if I don't know how to explain like what that feeling was, but it was more like I had to keep it a secret, like, and when they came around, like I knew what the fuck I knew what was gonna happen, and it was just like I don't know how, I still don't know how to explain it. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I was molested. I remember being in the U-Haul truck, and I hold a lot of resentment towards my mom too, because my mom grew up with that background. Like she went through what I went through, but even worse. So in my head, I'm like, if you knew that you went through this, like you would be able to watch out for this for your daughter, like in my head, because I have a daughter now, and when whoever comes around my daughter, there's only a limited people. Since she's been born, besides my baby's dad, I've only had one man around my daughter, So to me, I just feel like I kind of hold resentment towards my mom for not knowing or not doing better, because she stuck me in the U-Haul truck while we were moving, and the whole time we were moving, this man was molesting me from point A to point B to inside the house, back into the U-Haul truck. So I don't know, I guess like my whole life, I just, anyways, so I had to grow up pretty fast, like, and then again, and in Seattle, my dad was in and out of prison, in and out of jail. So again, I had to step up and help my mom with the bills. I had to drop out of high school to get a job and help my mom with the mortgage. So it was just, while my dad was doing him, I was being the dad. I was being the man of the house, while my mom was being the woman of the house. I was also, while my dad was around, I couldn't be outside in the living room with any revealing clothes. I had to cover up. I had to wear a sweater. I had to wear sweatpants, or else I would have to stay inside the room. I couldn't show my face, and if I did show my face, it was either being in the kitchen, cooking and cleaning. I had to serve the man. I had to basically be a good host, I had to make my dad and my mom look good. So, so in high school, let me rewind. So I knew that the reason why we had moved from California to Washington was to get rid of, like, to stop gang banging. So when my dad had started gang banging and my brother started getting involved, that's when I was like, you know what, this is not how it's supposed to go, So I had tried to find my own way. I became a skater. That didn't really work out for me. Then I became a punk rocker. And then and then when I was a punk rocker, that really worked out for me because I went to shows and they had mosh pits there. And in mosh pits, you can mess some shit up, and like it's just, yeah, you know exactly what I'm saying. So like you can mess things up and like punch people, and there's like no repercussions, So that was my thing. For years, I was in mosh pits. Suicidal tendencies. I seen a guy wearing suicidal tendencies. I got them tatted on my arm. That was like, So then I was a punk rocker, had a mullet with green hair, and yeah, it was crazy. I was really crazy. So then, but then I was a punk rocker, and then since my brothers got more involved in the gang life, that's when I got more involved in the gang life, because I'll be damned if some female comes over here and messes with my brother and I'm not going to do anything about it, you know? So then I became the enforcer. So I was like this punk rocker chola that beat up people for my brothers, you know? So they're like, comes this big Samoan girl with mullet and she's gonna beat you up. That was me. So then I slowly started leaving, you know, the punk rocker in me, and then I started being more chola. Started hanging with my brothers and start hanging out with his homies, and I became the one who would, like, when all the homies would come over, I'd cook for them. I'd make sure they're straight. I'd make sure their straps are good. I make sure they're good. Make sure everything's just good. Like I was their caretaker, and if they needed me to go do something with them, I'm more than willing to go do it. You know, as long as I'm with my brothers and I know that they're safe, and I'm like, regardless if they have a 40 and 45 in their hand, I have a 9, like whatever. As long as I'm there with my brothers, like that's all that matters. So that's how I became more involved in the gang life. And then at the age of 18, my dad had went to prison again, and my mom had gotten mad at me because I had slain some Xanax and I didn't give her the whole profit of it, and she kicked me out. And she kicked me out in front of all the homies. So that was really embarrassing for my mom to do that to me. She made me I was wearing this shirt. It was a white shirt and it was her shirt. And the fact that it was her shirt and she was mad at me, she made me take off my shirt in front of all my homies, like all of them, like all 10 of them. My mom made me take them off and just let through my shirt, you know? So that was like really embarrassing. And the next day I was on my way to some job selling magazines, and I was like already in Oregon. So while I'm selling these magazines, you know, living from hotel to hotel, just doing this whole adventure with my best friend at the time, my baby brother, Andrew, got shot. At the age of 15, he got shot with 45. And, you know, thank God that he's really big, because it was like 3 centimeters away from his heart. So while my brother is laying on the ground, the cops had went to my house and asked my brothers and the homies like questions, you know, and my brothers, being my brothers, are not going to tell the cops anything, you know? So for 45 minutes, the cops are questioning my brother and the homies, saying like, oh, this is your brother's dead. You're not going to help him, blah, 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 this and that. Whole time, my brother's still breathing. He's still alive. After 45 minutes, they get on their intercom and be like, okay, call the ambulance, get him to the hospital, you know? So my brother's like, what the heck, you know? So, and my little brother had told me too, because we were really close, like that was my best friend. That was the first person I ever told that I got molested. That was the first person that I ever told like anything, like Andrew was my best friend growing up. So I remember him telling me like, Velia, like me laying on that train tracks, like him looking into the sky, he said his whole life flashed before his eyes. And then one of the things that popped in his head was that he was never going to be able to say goodbye to me, you know, because that was my promise, was I'm going to come back for you. Like, don't trip, I'm coming back for you. I'm going to save up enough money and I'm coming back for you, and we're going to go and live a happy life. And then that never happened, you know? So when I'm selling these magazines, the people who were there, who the owners of the company, I was one of their top sellers. So when someone had contacted me while I was on the road that my brother was shot, and they actually had told me that he died, had told my bosses had told me that none of that never happened. Like my brother was fine. They called all the hospitals, which they didn't. They just wanted me to stay and make money for them. Yeah. So finally, when I had contacted someone, they told me that my brother was alive, you know, that he was well, and that they moved him from Washington to here to Pedro to live with my cousin. And so he was good. So once I found out that he was good, I was like, okay, this is my chance to keep on, you know, selling magazines and making money and blah, 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 this and that. So after about like 8 months of doing that, selling magazines, I realized that that wasn't for me. And I had went back to Washington. They had a bed for me here, but it wasn't, I don't know what made me go back to Washington. I just went back there, waited for my dad to get out of prison. And then I guess we came down here for a little bit. Me and my dad ran the streets for a little bit out here. And then we took my little brother back up there with us. As soon as we get back up to Washington, my brother was booked for attempted murder, 2 counts at the age of 15. It was 15 and he got 35 years at the age of 15. And that changed like everything in me. I felt like I failed my little brother, you know? I remember going to county and visiting him, and I remember just looking him in the eyes like, hey, just let me take the rap for this. Even though we or he didn't do any of what they're saying that he did, I just felt like as an older sister, that would have been my job, you know, because I know male prison is way, way, way tougher than a female prison, you know, and females, there's just a whole bunch of like lesbian action. It's really not that, you know, it's not that crazy. So, but so with my brother was just like, he's like, no, I'm not gonna let you do that. I'm not gonna let you put the rap for something that we didn't do. And it looked like he was, if you guys would have went to his court, you would have been like, for sure he's getting out. There's no way, there's no evidence, there's nothing, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that they kept on bringing my dad's history into every time we went to like fighting a case, they would always bring my dad's history from California into ours. So that kind of screwed us over. So then he got 35. Oh, and I totally skipped the part where I went to prison too. I totally like skipped that part. So one day I was like, I don't know. So me and my brother had went on a mission, and I had beat up this girl who was dating my dad, and she was talking about the homies. So I felt like it was in our best interest that I beat her up. So one day after work, I had ran up in her house and I beat her up. She ended up calling the cops. So for a month, the cops were looking for me and my brother, and I didn't know it. They had caught my brother parking the car, and my dumbass had went to go help him, right? So I'm calling the jail like, hey, I need to pick up my brother's property, blah, 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 this and that. And they're like, oh, well, you need your ID to come and pick up his property, blah, 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 this and that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have my ID. So I go and get my ID that day. I go to go pick up his property. Next thing you know, there's 3 fucking officers just like, they just bang my head into the wall, and they're just arresting me because I was my brother's co-defendant. I was my no partner in crime, but I was retarded at that time. I still am retarded, but yeah. So I go to prison for 10 months. They gave me it was 15 to 20 months, but they gave me 15 months. Good time. I got my GED while I was in waiting trial, so then that knocked it off. Prison really wasn't that bad. Like I said, it was just like a lesbian college. Like it wasn't bad. You know, for females, it wasn't. It was actually pretty cool. I ate really good in prison. And then after well, this whole thing was happening with me and my brothers and my dad and me going to prison. My mom had left my dad during that time. So she had disappeared on us. We didn't know where she went. She was gonna change her name. I don't know. The only time we would ever hear from her is when she would randomly call one of our cell phones on a private number. And she would say that she was in Canada. So for like 4 years, we thought she was in Canada. And then when I got out of prison, I was 22 when I got out of prison, we finally figured out that she was in Colorado. So when I got out of prison, she's like, I'm coming for you, Velia. Like, I don't want you over there, blah, blah. My dad, my brother, and both of my brothers were in prison. I just got out of prison. So she was trying to save me. So I had went to, and I'm totally like missing my whole addiction part, right? Yeah, okay. So like, I got, my bad. So I got strung out on Narcos. Narcos was like my first love when I was 15. I was stealing from my mom. And then from Narcos, I graduated to Oxycontin at that time, which they were doing the 80s, and we would buy them for like $70 a pop at that time. And then they had switched the Oxycontin to OPs, so you couldn't smoke them anymore because they were time release. It was every 5 milligrams, so you'd have to pop it and you wouldn't get as high. So then I moved to Roxy's, and I would steal those from my mom. And so when I had got out of prison, I went to my mom's house, and that was my drug dealer right there. So whenever I got the chance, I would steal her pills from her in her purse. Whenever she would tell me to go to her purse, or she would try to hide it, I still found it. So I was in Colorado after prison for about a month, and my mom had really, really bad problems. She had fibromyalgia. She has sciatic nerve problems. So like I was really taking pills from her mom when she really, really, really needed it. So she got tired of me and she sent me here. So I was here, 22, strung out, withdrawing off of fucking the Roxy's. And then that's when I started getting into crystal. So right here, this is where like I pretty much lost my mind. I found my baby's dad, the love of my life, I guess, whatever. Instantly got pregnant at like the first 3 months. I got pregnant, so we basically made it work. You know, like it was just whatever. You know, you got me pregnant. We're gonna try to make this family work. But he was an alcoholic, and then I was a meth head at this time. So whenever he would go and drink after I had the baby, I would go and get high. So it was like this tit for tat thing. Like if you can't stay sober, then I can't stay sober. So since you're not gonna stop, I'm not gonna stop. So it would be like, all right, we'll go like maybe a couple weeks without doing whatever we were doing, and then we would start all over. So it goes for like 8 years. He gets locked up. I take care of him. I moved to Colorado. I'm a manager somewhere, but I'm still smoking meth with all the fucking employees, but I'm the fucking manager and the supervisor. So you better listen to me or give me your pipe and let me smoke it and we'll be great, you know? So, and it's in churches too. So I'm like smoking meth in churches. So I'm pretty sure that was, yeah. So, yeah. So, this whole time my baby's dad thinks I'm doing a great job, but I'm getting high the whole time. And so, 2 months before he gets out, I end up leaving him. I don't know. I don't know. It was retarded. So I end up leaving him. I come back over here because I think it's the best thing for my son to have his father in his life. So I come over here. He gets out, but I'm in a new relationship. And I'm in a new relationship with someone who has access to heroin, who has access to meth, you know? So I end up spending all my savings. I had like $5,000 saved, all on drugs within a month. Right. So then I realized that that relationship wasn't going to work for some reason. I just knew it at that time after I spent all my fucking money. So I go back to my baby's dad. Instantly we get pregnant with my daughter. So we try to make it work again. And on and off during my pregnancy, I knew he was cheating. You know, my son would come and be like, oh yeah, my dad's girlfriend. His dad also told me that he was cheating on me in an argument. So it was just, you know, just a toxic relationship. So we end up getting this apartment through Harbor Interfaith over here on 9th Street. And we're doing, you know, the family thing. Everything's going gravy. And then I have my daughter. And so after I had my daughter, I end up relapsing again. So basically the whole apartment thing is a big mess because I'm getting high. He's drinking, he's cheating on me. I'm going crazy and I break all the neighbors' windows because I think that his girlfriend is in one of those apartments for some reason. You know, I heard her voice. I'm pretty sure she was in one of those apartments. I just couldn't catch her. So, yeah, it was crazy. I started hearing voices, and still to this day, there's some things that happened to me that I will never ever say that it never happened. You know how some people are like, oh yeah, those are just the drugs talking. No, I really feel like still to this day that some of those things really did happen. Like those voices were really there and really real, you know? So this is when I started getting into fentanyl. So someone, I had a C-section, so I'm on opiates, So leave the hospital, a script of opiates, and then I go back to Roxy's. Someone had sold me a pill, and I smoke it, and I end up on the ground in the kitchen, and I wake up with the foil in my hand. I'm just like, what the heck, I'm like, dang, and I take another hit. I'm like, yeah, like, you're still there to do this, right? And in my head, I'm thinking like, dang, it's probably because I'm such like a big girl that like I didn't die, because it was like I smoked that whole thing. So I started getting into Fetty. So then I start buying, instead of doing the blues, I start buying grams of Fetty. And then when I didn't have the Fetty, I would buy the blues. So if I bought the blues, it would be like 15 pills. I would do like 15 pills like every day, right? So this is like sometime like in the future where like I had relapsed, and it was when we had EDD. You guys remember? 5 minutes? All right, EDD. So I relapsed, and I spent all my EDD money on fentanyl, right? And it was crazy. So during that time, I'm like, damn, I really need to stop. So I go to rehab, and I go to Tarzana. So Tarzana's all the way in Tarzana, and that was like the only spot. So I go there and I get clean, and then they kick me out. They kick me out of Tarzana because I try to fight one of my roommates. So they kicked me out, and then I'm on the MAP program. When they kick me out, so I'm withdrawing on the streets. So I just stick with Bud at that time. Then I go to Redgate, and Redgate, I went there on April 8th, 2021. And so my clean date's April 9th, 2021. I remember saying a prayer on the bridge too, like for the Lord to keep all my friends and family, alive, that I could see them again. And 2 days after I get to Redgate, someone dies. My homie Trusty had died. He got into a shooting in Wilmington, and he got shot 3 times, and he died. So I remember just sitting there like, dang, man, like I just prayed for them to, I just prayed for everyone that I care about to be safe. A month later, my little homie, Smalls, he gets shot in the head. He dies. So I'm in rehab, and I'm just like, dang, man, like how am I gonna deal with all this? I get kicked out of that rehab because I'm literally being gay. I end up getting caught. I get caught being with a girl, and then they ship me off to Flossie Lewis. So Flossie Lewis, right there, I lose my reunification rights with my kids. By the way, I lost my kids. I know I skipped that part. So I lost my reunification rights at Flossie Lewis, and that was when I was like, what the fuck, what the heck am I here for? If I lost my reunification rights, like why am I still fighting? But my mom had said something to me that just made me like, just to stay in there. So I end up graduating Flossie Lewis. I come to Fred Brown's. I'm in the Torrance house. I get put on restriction. That's when Sunshine was the manager over there. But in my head, I felt so lost when I left rehab. Like I did not want to be in sober living. Like I didn't know where to begin, what to do. So in my first week, I'm like getting enrolled in parenting class. I'm getting enrolled in domestic violence class. I feel like I'm doing everything that I need to do, and I'm on bus. And Sunshine comes to me and she's like, you're on a whole restriction, or like the 7, or no movement. It was no movement, right? And I'm like, what the? So I kind of go off on her, and she's like, well, I'm not here to like hurt you. It's just blah, blah, blah. So then the next day, I'm in group, and Sally was my caseworker, and she brings me into her room, and then she could tell I'm like super tense, and she like tells me, calm down, put all your stuff down. She's like, just take a deep breath. You're not in trouble. And she was like the chillest person. She was like the coolest, like counselor you could ever have. So then I do the whole Fred Brown thing. I'm loving it. I'm going to meetings. I'm like hitting my milestones. And then at one point they said that they wanted me to be a manager of the house. And then that never went through. And I was pissed because I was like counting on it, you know, but it's okay. I went to the Shaw House after I graduated. And then from there, I was there for like 2 months. And then I moved into an apartment with a roommate that I was rooming with at Fred Brown. And that was crazy. That was a disaster. Like it was freaking, she relapsed and I thought that I could help her, thought I could save her. And then I had this boyfriend that I met from Fred Brown and he was just doing the damn thing and just relapsing too. So I was the only sober one in this house and everybody else around me was relapsing. And I was just like, maybe I could help everybody. And he put me through hell, but I stayed sober during it because I felt like I'm not gonna let my man like run the street. Like I'm like the only thing that he has. So I'm like, if he runs the street, I'm gonna run the street too with him, making sure that he's safe and he doesn't get killed like so and so got killed, you know? But I'm gonna end it off with this. He's clean and sober now, 6 months, and here's the reason why I'm back in